Hey everyone, so I am finally going to read what I wrote many months ago. I feel like this has been on my Google Doc for maybe like 2 months, being that the most or the least. And, it's been long overdue that I read this because I've mentioned it time and time again. I wrote something and I've been wanting to read it. And interestingly enough, I was just reading it and I was like, wow, this goes perfectly with what I just spoke about regarding the obsession for the American flag. And to me, it really ties in so well with those that have colonized this country wanting to assert dominance. And I speak on that. So yes, let's dive in. I've noticed a persistent narrative that frames America as uniquely and deeply problematic when it comes to race, which, to be clear, it absolutely is. But what strikes me as ironic is the denial, or at least minimization, of racial issues in other Westernized countries. I've had conversations with people of color who live in or come from European countries. And often there's this subtle suggestion that racial dynamics there are somehow more equitable. I find that perspective difficult to accept, especially given the demographic and historical makeup of those nations. Countries largely built by and for white people, and still primarily inhabited and governed by them. It makes sense then that there's a false sense of greater equality because the dominant group doesn't have to fight for a sense of belonging. They already claim ownership of a land and its institution. And I said ownership of the land and its institution. Yes, white people hold power in America too, but I think part of the reason white supremacy is so aggressively maintained here is because of an underlying anxiety and awareness that this is not originally their land. Think about it. When we see those flags waving or in our faces, right? What is that all about? Is it an attempt to, once again, assert dominance, to prove that they are? And it so much reminds me of what I spoke about in previous videos. And if you do watch every video, you'll probably be like, oh yeah, I remember you mentioning that there was an individual from CNN and he was speaking to a number of conservatives. This was for like a YouTube channel, I believe. And this white young male, so boldly said, yes, I am Native American. It was interesting because then the commentary was like, well, do Americans have education, or, do they receive any formal education? And yeah, we would wonder that, given the fact that people don't know the history or don't know the true history. And it's sad that, this watered down, whitewashed history is taught to people in our country. And it's just like, and perhaps this is why there's so much lack of trust with the white community. And I'm going to keep it completely honest. I know I feel like that. And I just never liked individuals. And I feel like a lot of people will agree to this. People don't like dishonesty. People don't like people that don't keep it real. And I feel like in this country, there's always this fictitious and false unity and this denial of the reality and what exists. And I feel like there can only be healing, and I've said this as well in previous videos, where there's only healing. And this is also even tying it to the belief that I grew up. I speak about my faith-based background. Naturally, I don't necessarily, or I don't align with organized religion, which I also mention a lot. It's just that when I think about, faith or Christianity, I do know that in that journey, and I don't want to cry again, but in that journey, Christ tells us to lay our life down, right? Essentially at the cross, right? And I feel like that should also be part of the journey for humanity. And I take this in a different way, where I'm just like, he's essentially saying, lay all of the ugliness, lay all of the truths before me. And and I feel like that's what I believe the world doesn't do. It's not honest with itself. People are not honest with themselves as well. Naturally, that is part of the world not being honest with themselves in terms of realizing how much damage has been done, how much hurt there has been done, and people don't want to let go of their egos, let go of their wrongdoings, because it doesn't serve them well ultimately. So, yes, that's what I wanted to say in regards to that. And that will never bring healing. That will never. And once again, God doesn't, like, if there is a divine one, and if we so much say that we believe in Christianity, Christianity aligns with, there's often this patriotism hinged with Christianity. It's almost merged together. And those of us that live in, and, are born, bred here, or even come to this country, that Christianity is often viewed as the religion for the West, or, to be honest, colonized countries and places. And it's insane to see how Christianity, or more or less like Jesus' teaching, were hinged on forgiveness, were hinged on servant-like living, and that is not what I find America to represent, or this country and this world often to represent, especially countries that are saying, I am in alignment with faith, and I find that it's just, to be honest, and this is why I've backed away, and now I say, I'm not in alignment with organized religion, because I do find people use organized religion as a way to shield their wrongdoings, to justify their wrongdoings. And that's what we see here. And it almost reminds me of like when Jesus said, you've made my house, and I've said this before, a den of thieves. And I find that, yes, America and the world unfortunately represents that. It doesn't represent it. It's Jesus came to serve, not to be served. And I don't find that to be what is present and alive, not only here in the US, but all over the world, right? So, and I don't want to cry. Okay, so I'm going to read that specific paragraph that I was reading and continue, because I'm pretty sure I lost some of you guys. Yes, white people hold power in America too, but I think part of the reason white supremacy is so aggressively maintained here is because of an underlying anxiety and awareness that this is not originally their land. So what happens? There's this need to assert dominance and to constantly push the idea that they are the rightful owners, while positioning others, even those born and raised here, as outsiders. It's not just about power, it's about narrative control. It's a struggle to be seen as the ones who are truly from here. As I sat with this thought, I was reminded of other colonized regions like Australia, for example, where the Aboriginal peoples were the original inhabitants. The desire to claim these lands isn't just about territory, it's about controlling what comes with the land, resources, wealth, status, and power. And it made me think of a saying I heard often growing up in the Christian faith: money is the root of all evil, because with money comes access, often to everything. And in that pursuit, people frequently lose their humanity. We've seen it time and time again, particularly among those colonized and who continue to colonize. There's a pattern of blatant disregard for others simply because there's something to gain. How devastating, how telling. So I just wanted to say that. All right, take care. Bye.